Deep within the impenetrable steel gates of Britain's prisons, a secret world thrived, cloaked in shadows and whispers, far from the prying eyes of the outside. In this unforgiving realm, a cigarette was no mere vice, it was currency, influence, the very pulse of survival. A stolen sip of raw, illicit prison brew could forge unbreakable bonds, ignite fierce rebellions, or momentarily silence the crushing weight of despair. Inside these cold, concrete fortresses, drinks and smokes transcended indulgence. They were a coded language, a ladder of power, a fragile tether to humanity itself. Tonight, we unravel the hidden saga of Britain's jailhouse drinks and smokes culture, a clandestine world that shaped prison hierarchies, fueled gang loyalties, and redefined what it meant to command respect behind bars. This is the story the outside world was never meant to know, a tale of defiance, desperation, and the unyielding human spirit. Welcome to PastMuse, where history's forgotten chapters roar back to life. Step into the bleak heart of a British prison in the 1960s or 70s, picture dang. Dimly lit corridors thick with the stench of mildew and hopelessness. Iron bunks creaking under the weight of restless, caged men, and the relentless thud of guards' boots reverberating through the night like a grim metronome. In this world, the rules of the outside meant nothing. Cash. Useless scraps of paper, irrelevant in a place where survival demanded a different kind of wealth, cigarettes. They reigned as the undisputed currency of the prison's underground economy. Need a tattered blanket to fend off the bone-chilling dampness seeping through the walls. That'll cost you a smoke. Want a whispered message smuggled across wings past the watchful eyes of guards. Hand over a few more. A single cigarette could secure a small favor. A full pack could buy loyalty that ran deeper than blood. Some inmates never touched a match. They hoarded their cigarettes like precious gold, trading them for influence or stashing them for a moment of desperate need. Controlling the tobacco supply meant wielding power, commanding respect, even instilling fear. Smuggling became a high-stakes underworld trade, with inmates bribing corrupt guards or risking brutal beatings to slip packs through the cracks of the system. In this merciless jailhouse economy, cigarettes weren't just nicotine, they were survival, security, and, at times, the only thing keeping a man from the edge of oblivion. To those walking free, a cigarette is a fleeting habit, a momentary escape. Inside the prison's concrete jaws, it was a sacred ritual steeped in meaning and woven into the fabric of survival. After a vicious brawl in the muddy, blood-streaked prison yard, offering a smoke could be a silent olive branch, turning sworn enemies into cautious allies bound by the shared weight of their chains. In the suffocating stillness of a long, lonely night, a circle of inmates huddled in a cramped cell, passing a single cigarette, became a makeshift sanctuary. Words were scarce, but the act spoke louder, forging unspoken bonds in the flickering glow. That tiny, glowing ember piercing the oppressive darkness was a defiant beacon, a reminder of humanity, of a life beyond the bars, of a world where freedom wasn't just a fading dream. Smoking was rebellion in its purest form. When bands clamped down on certain wings, inmates risked solitary confinement or, worse, to steal a drag, crouching under threadbare blankets to mask the telltale glow from patrolling guards. Resourcefulness was their lifeline. They carved crude pipes from scavenged wood scraps, rolled tobacco in torn pages of smuggled newspapers, or, in desperate times, mixed in shredded tea leaves, dried herbs, or even crushed grass when supplies ran dry. To lack a cigarette wasn't just to crave nicotine, it was to feel stripped bare, powerless in a world where vulnerability invited predators and weakness could cost you your life. Cigarettes told only half the story. Deep in the shadows of the cells, another forbidden culture simmered: prison alcohol, known as hooch or brew, a crude elixir born of desperation and defiance. Inmates turned scavengers, pilfering overripe fruit from kitchen scraps, smuggling sugar packets from the mess hall, and collecting stale bread crusts, stashing them in secret corners of their cells. Their brewing grounds were as grim as their lives: old milk bottles, cracked plastic buckets, or, in the most desperate cases, cell toilets repurposed as fermenting vats. After weeks of clandestine alchemy, a potent, sour liquid emerged foul-smelling, often toxic but revered as liquid gold in a world stripped of joy. This wasn't about taste. It was about transcendence. One gritty, burning sip could summon vivid memories of raucous nights at the pub, of laughter with mates under neon lights, of a life where you were a man, not a number etched on a uniform. Brewing hooch was a quiet act of rebellion, a way to spit in the face of a system designed to crush your will. It was rarely a solitary act. Hooch was shared among cellmates, gangs, or trusted crews, each sip sealing trust and forging loyalty in the perilous silence of prison nights. In a place engineered to dehumanize, that communal drink was a spark of hope, a fleeting taste of freedom, a bond that could mean the difference between surviving and breaking under the weight of the bars. As cigarettes and hooch pulsed through the prison's veins, they reshaped its soul, giving rise to a new order: gangs, bound not just by crime but by the sacred currency of vice. The inmate who smuggled a steady stream of tobacco earned instant clout. His name carried weight in the crowded mess hall, whispered with respect in the yard. The one who mastered the dangerous art of brewing hooch, hiding it from the guards' relentless searches, won fierce loyalty from those who shared his cup. Control both, and you weren't just a man, you were a kingpin, untouchable in a chaotic kingdom of concrete and steel. Gangs wove these goods into their very rituals. New recruits faced grueling initiation tests, tasked with sneaking smokes past hawk-eyed guards or fermenting a batch of hooch undetected in the belly of the cell block. These weren't mere games, they were proofs of cunning, loyalty, and the ability to provide for the group in a world where trust was rarer than gold. But betrayal cut deeper than any blade. Unpaid cigarette debts sparked brutal reprisals. A man who smoked beyond his means might barter his meals, his clothes, or even his dignity to settle the score. Whispers tell of inmates beaten bloody, shanked in dark corners, or ostracized over a single pack ode, their screams echoing through the night as a warning to others. In this unforgiving jailhouse economy, owing smokes wasn't just a debt, it was a gamble with your survival, a dance with danger in a place where mercy was a myth. This vibrant culture of drinks and smokes cast long, treacherous shadows. Hooch, brewed in filthy, makeshift containers, was a petri dish for disease, festering with bacteria that could sicken, blind, or kill. Some batches turned poisonous, yet inmates drank anyway, driven by the desperate need to feel alive, if only for a fleeting moment. Cigarette stashes became prime targets, sparking thefts that turned cells into battlegrounds. A stolen pack or a sabotaged brew could ignite vicious brawls, even full-blown riots, as men fought not for ideals but for pride, power, and the scraps of their fractured humanity. Guards responded with ruthless fury. Mass shakedowns tore apart bunks. Dogs sniffed out hidden hooch with chilling precision, and entire wings were thrown into solitary confinement for a single contraband cigarette. The punishments were brutal days in darkness, meals withheld, spirits broken, but the culture endured, fueled by a primal human need to resist, to reclaim a piece of self in a system built to crush it. As long as men were locked away, severed from the world, they'd find ways to light a smoke, sip a brew, and defy the chains that bound them, no matter the cost. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, the iron fist of reform descended like a storm. Cigarette bans swept through Britain's prisons like wildfire, stripping away the ritual of smoking and replacing it with cold, clinical nicotine patches that carried none of the old magic or meaning. Guard dogs prowled cell blocks, their noses sniffing out hidden stashes with ruthless efficiency. Bunks were dismantled, hooch batches poured into drains, and rules tightened like a noose around the prison's soul. The vibrant, defiant culture of drinks and smokes began to fade, suffocated by surveillance, searches, and an unrelenting push for control. Former inmates look back with a tangled mix of bitterness and haunting nostalgia, their voices heavy with the weight of memory. They recall the quiet drag of a cigarette after an endless day of monotony, the raucous, forbidden laughter shared over a cup of foul-tasting hooch, the strange, fleeting brotherhood forged in a place designed to shatter it. To the outside world, these were dirty vices, habits to be eradicated without a second thought. To those inside, they were Lifeline's fragile sparks of normalcy, rebellion, and humanity in a world engineered to strip away identity and hope. The era of Britain's jailhouse drinks and smokes has faded into the past, but its stories linger like the faint curl of smoke in a darkened room. They speak of resilience, of men finding ways to connect, resist, and endure in the bleakest of cages. A cigarette became a coin, a crude brew a sacred ritual, and together they carved a hidden chapter of history that still echoes through the years. So, the next time you see smoke twisting skyward or raise a glass to your lips, pause and reflect. For some, those simple acts were once everything: survival, rebellion, power, a testament to the unyielding human spirit in the face of captivity. This is PastMuse, where the past speaks again.